Hello and welcome to That Happens, the podcast where the end of the world happens. I'm your host, Spencer Crittenden, and coming with me live is Kevin Day, the end of days. Kevin Day, baby. What's up? Can't help but notice we have a new tech situation where we can actually see the live program view, and I am mirrored. Do I look mirrored to you, or is that something you do to the camera, Kevin?
You're seeing what the people at home are seeing. So I think Zoom is flipping you so that you look normal to yourself. And what you're seeing in the live program view is what everyone else sees.
Why are they doing this? Why would they trick us like this? I look much better the way I see me, but it's like, no, you have to look like this made up, whatever, man. We got a lot of stuff to get to. Do we? I like to call our next guest a lot of stuff. You know, that's back in the olden days when we were kicking back in the olden places. I don't know, man. Jesus Christ. I just took a shit, you guys. And I'm all out of sorts.
I can tell.
Yeah.
But we got shit discombobulation.
Yeah, you could tell my complexion is bright red. I'm just dripping sweat.
Blood vessels. Yeah.
But we got Ryan Ridley in the studio. It's his first time on Schraub Home Video. Is that right, Kevin?
Yes. We've never shown Ryan Ridley on here before, ever.
Oh,
this is a record for us, yes.
This is That Happens exclusive. Go ahead.
Waiting for this day for years. For decades.
I actually have been waiting for this day because you were on our potential guests list. I don't know if you know about this.
Wow, I made it that
Kevin,
far,
pull up yeah, you will. I'll tell you this. You made it farther than that. You made it to the actual call list, which is like, okay, we're going to go out to these people. And then I was like, I think we've had too many guys on the show. And then I think we might have put a hold on that. But yeah. You know, I don't know. You work in Hollywood. It's diversity. It's like, it's not something that happens automatically. Well, not if you're a white male, at least. You know, it's something that you got to keep in mind and be like, I'm not going to let this slip until it's too late and we've booked the entire Harmon Quest and it's all white males. You know, it's something you got to think about a little bit. Is that your experience, or does it just come naturally to you?
Hey, man, you're talking to the guy who said in Rick and Morty season 2, we got to hire women next year.
Mm-hmm. Man, did you actually say that? Because you posed it kind of like one of these Ridley jokes,
like a hero. No, I mean, to the point. Yeah, I mean, I think me and McMahon talked about it. Like, it's not like it came from the powers that be. You know, I don't know.
It never does.
Of course, they took all the credit.
Oh, sure. They were like, the first thing I said when I was starting season 2 was, we got to get women in this room. And you're over here like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's funny because, it's like, to your point, with Channel 101, it was all mostly dudes. And then when Rick and Morty started, it was like mostly, we're like, well, who do we hire for Rick and Morty? Well, let's think about the Channel 101 people, and so then it kind of perpetuates.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, especially with Channel 101, it's like people trying to make movies and stuff with their friends. And it's no secret that friend groups, have not necessarily always or even a majority, but they can tend to look like you. That's just something that happens. Is you might grow up in a place, or you might just have a lot of social group people that look like you. Oh my God, I sound like a piece of shit.
No, it's funny because I it's weird to the point where like, I'll say this about my childhood friends. So my dad was My dad was not Jewish. My mom was Jewish. And if you look at my childhood friends, it's literally like half of them are Jewish and half of them are not Jewish. It's almost like a complete reflection of, my own demographic. And then now, even in life, most of my close friends are usually Jewish, which is, why does that happen? I thought, this is a little side note observation, but it's pertinent, so I'll bring it up. So I'm not big into astrology, which I don't know where you stand on that, Spencer.
Love it. I don't know anything about it, but I'm a big enthusiast. I'm rooting for it.
So someone will go. You've probably been in LA, and someone, Kevin, maybe you too. Like, have had these conversations where you go, oh, I'm a Sagittarius, and then someone will go, oh, of course. I mean, it's because I could tell because you're this, you're that, you're curious, you're ambitious, you're whatever. And they're ascribing all these things to you based on whatever random star was, aligned with your month of birth. And yet the truth is, if I were to say to somebody like, hey, what's your ethnic background? And they were go, oh, I'm my mom's Irish or my dad's Italian. I were, oh, well, that explains it. I mean, you got a quick temper and a little bit of a drinking problem. And
you love using hands in speech.
What's that?
And you love using your hands and gestures and speech.
Yeah, exactly. Now that would be offensive, but infinitely more accurate than whatever star was above you when you were born, as far as predicting or explaining your behavior.
What if we looked it up and every single ethnicity fit perfectly into an astrological house, and it's just oh my god, all Jewish Italian people are Sagittariuses. This guy, I've never even thought about this before, but
wow,
it's just that's what it is.
Yeah, birth rates. It's zodiac. Suddenly we're looking at all birth rates of Italy and Israel, and holy shit, everybody's born in December.
Yeah, and now Kevin, I can't help but notice that Ryan, his camera doesn't flip, does it? When we're looking at Ryan, that's the same orientation. Oh wait, no, maybe for him. Are you
just for yourself? You see it?
Yeah, it's just for yourself. So never mind. It's still Kevin's fault. I gotta say that it's certainly not my fault, and it's not my fault for being stupid for not remembering the thing that Kevin told me at the beginning of the show. But Kevin's a big part of this show, and one of the things we like to do on the show is try and guess what Kevin's deal is. So Ryan, do you know what Kevin's deal is going into this? This is kind of the pregame sort of situation. Do you have knowledge about Kevin?
Very limited.
Right. And so do we all. He's a mysterious figure, and it's a strange thing, but we like to guess what Kevin's deal is. So I mean, does anything speak to you off the dome, just in your ability to read people?
Well, I mean, the knowledge I have is that, basically I assume Kevin puts a lot of work into this Schraub Home Video. What's the whole thing called? The whole network?
Yep. Schraub Home Video.
Schraub Home Video. Okay. So obviously, you're passionate and you care about something that I assume is not extremely rewarding other than creatively.
Correct.
That speaks to a certain kind of personality type.
Yeah.
But now, so if you have personality type I relate with, I mean, that's how I got into Channel 101. Most of the shit I did for years was stuff I did for free.
So if you had to translate that into a deal, that was Kevin's deal, how would you phrase that, and do it in the form of a question, or is Kevin, is your deal this, or I think Kevin's deal is this?
Kevin, is your deal that you want to just belong and be a part of something bigger than yourself?
That's a good way of putting it. Yes.
God damn it. I found that I guess it's just I'm bad at reading people is maybe what we discover. But a lot of our guests have very keen insights based on very little that end up cutting to the heart of what Kevin's deal is. This is maybe the third or fourth time we've won the game. What is Kevin's deal?
Who else is? What are some other past insights?
I don't know. We had Mara Quint on. She's someone I just know off of Twitter. She's an activist and comedy writer, and she really nailed it. I can't even remember what she said. Kevin, do you remember anyone else that nailed you to the wall?
I mean, I don't know that anyone's really got it nailed.
Well,
I'm about to.
Right,
Kevin,
okay.
Is your deal that you leave food in the fridge for way too long, and then you're like, I should really throw it out, but then you don't, and then by the time you throw it out, it's fuzzy and disgusting, and also you killed your previous wife?
No to both.
Fuck. Okay. See, this is what I mean. I'm not good at this game.
Was that a way of kind of throwing them off kilter for a second with a softball and then catching them, with the real deal? Is that what that was a good tactic?
Thank you. I'd like to take credit for that, but I don't think I had anywhere near enough intention to be able to lay claim to a strategy like that. I just kind of, I mean, we've been doing this podcast. We don't have Jeff on the show. We'd love to have Jeff on the show. And in fact, I've heard stories that if we have time, we might actually have him calling in tonight on towards the end of the show. But,
How long is this show? You said tonight?
Yeah, it is tonight. 5:46. That's tonight. I mean, I know
when
it's
does tonight start.
I'd say tonight has started, maybe by 5.
So we're not in late afternoon anymore?
I mean, there's two schools of thought. And one is it's more about sunlight. But to me, it's just time. So it's going to be, it's going to be bright out until probably at least like 7:30 or something. And so I can understand if you're like, yeah, it's not. Yeah, so I'd understand if you're like, yeah, it's not nighttime yet. But to me, it's like, yeah, 5 is nighttime.
It's like the difference between who defines the definition of summer beginning on Memorial Day or the actual solar equinox. So that's the difference between May 30th or whenever Memorial Day falls and June 20th or whenever the summer equinox falls. So that's the kind of, it's the the seasonal version of that.
Damn, man, I could not give you even approximate dates for equinoxes, for solstices. That's impressive, I think.
Do you know something that fucking is so obvious that blew my mind? And so obvious that I know you all know this. But the full moon is always around the 14th of the month?
What? No, I did not know this.
Did you know this, Kevin?
No.
Jesus Christ, we're all fucking idiots. For 40 something years, I'd look up and be like, okay, it's a full moon randomly. But no, it's on the same fucking 28-day cycle. So it's 28 days. And so 14 days in is the full moon. And then the beginning and the end is the new moon or the whatever you call it, in between the waning and the waxing gibbouses. But yes, just about the 14th. Now, because of our weird solar lunar calendar shit we have going on, it's not always falling on the 14th, but essentially every 14 days is a full moon.
So that means there's 2. That's not right. There's not 2 full moons every month, right?
No, because there's not. Because you think about it, rough. Yeah, how would there be 2 full moons? I mean, trying to think. So if it's the 1st to the 14th, and then the 14th to the 28th. Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think if that would make sense. If there'd be a day a month that was extra long, that would maybe have a second full moon. I don't know.
Kevin pulled up a counter that said snow moon, worm moon, pink moon, flower moon, strawberry moon, buck moon, sturgeon moon, corn/harvest moon, hunter's moon, beaver moon, cold moon. There's only one moon, Kevin. This is obviously fucked.
Yeah, what are these?
So this is a list of, for this year, every full moon.
I've heard of worm moon before. I've heard of harvest moon. That's it. None of these are real. This is all fucked up. Kevin's like pulled up some MMORPG Wikipedia or something.
Hold on.
You guys hear that? That was my doorbell. They call it a doorbell, but it's really more of a traumatizing machine. Like I was trying to say, is Jeff used to be on the show, and now it's just me, and it's just wasting time. Like, this is all just horse shit. We're looking up a fucking moon calendar. Like, it's so, I don't know. I
think it's interesting.
I'm not saying it's not interesting.
So I'm not saying you're wrong, Ryan. But like, I'm looking at 2023 now, and none of them are even close to the 14th. So if you see where my cursor
Hold on. Wait a minute. What is this website? Timeanddate.com?
Timeanddate.com. And this agrees with the other one I looked at too. So if I go back to 2022.
And if you want to see inscrutable spreadsheets, check out the video episodes on thathappenspod.com or live at shrobhomevideo.com.
So looking at the full moon, like it is in June on the 14th, but then it looks like every month it gets a day earlier.
Well, so that has to do with the fucking...
Then 2023...
This is how we find out that Ryan's always been on a lunar calendar for some reason.
Well, no, it says it's the 14th day of the lunar month. So it's just
the lunar month.
It always has to do with how the lunar month, because that's 28 days, but February is the only 28-day month, so it gets thrown off by a few days because of the solar calendar.
Yes, the one we.
So now it's not always on the 14th of the solar calendar.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. See, yes, I was gonna ask this like 10 minutes ago. I was gonna ask because I was like, I think that's what's happening, and then I was further going to say, a bit of my own moon trivia that I think aligns no matter what calendar you're using. But if you look at the moon and you draw a line through it from top to bottom, from tip of the crescent to the other tip of the crescent, and then go a little bit up. You'll either form with the white part or the crescent, you'll form a lowercase d or a lowercase b. Okay. And if it's a B, that means the moon is waxing. It's getting bigger. And if it's a D, the moon is waning or it's getting smaller. And the mnemonic for that is if it's getting bigger, it's a baby moon. It's growing up. And if it's a D, it's a dying moon. It's getting smaller. So if you're ever looking at like a crescent moon, a half moon, which is called a 3/4 moon, I believe, or, you know, like you were saying, a waning gibbous, waxing gibbous, you know, and you're like, I wonder if it's getting bigger or smaller. I wonder if we're getting closer or farther away from the 14th of the lunar calendar. That's a way to know. And side fact, a fun fact on the side about that is if you're playing Minecraft, it's the opposite, because I guess they didn't know that when they made Minecraft. So a little tip for all you Minecraft players out there.
Nobody's fucking paying attention to the world outside. Not even when you're fucking spending all this money to make a fucking video game. You're not bothering to check.
I don't know. It's wild to me. Maybe it's like some sort of propaganda or something. But I'll tell you, Ryan, is that if you're looking for slimes in a swamp, they spawn more on the new moon. So it behooves you to know exactly what phase of the moon it is and how many days it's going to be until the new moon. So if you think you can use real world moon, you know, dynamics to determine how high your slime spawn rates are going to be. And now slimes, we don't even have to mention, but slimes are crucial in making sticky pistons and making slime blocks and making flying machines. So they're very valuable, Ryan. But you have to go in reverse of the natural moon mnemonic or moon mnemonic. Fuck. That could have been really funny if I said it right and also it was funny.
I think it's fascinating, and I made me Google whether that's based on a real fact, and everything is just Minecraft. When I Googled, does slime spawn during the new moon? Now, I guess, yes, in nature, slime doesn't spawn.
Right.
But I thought maybe there was some correlation.
I mean, maybe there is. I wonder. I'm sure for SEO purposes, you're going to get Minecraft stuff. But, you know, when I was a kid, slime molds, which are the realest version of slime, was fascinating to me because slime molds are a type of mold that can move around. If you play video games and you fight a slime blob, like this is the real world version of that. A slime blob does not exist in the real world, which it should. I always thought that slime should just exist. You know, these low level monsters that hop around. But
the real world? Don't.
Yeah, in the real world. Wouldn't that be cool if there were low level monsters in the real world? Like we get big bugs and rats and bats and birds and stuff. You would call these real world low level monsters, you know, cockroaches. But there's not real ones. And it's a shame because how are you going to level up? You know, like if you don't have, what, you're going to kill dogs? That's horrible. I don't think that'll give you experience. I mean, it'll give you experience, but like not like really bad experience.
Yeah.
I guess if you're trying to go ahead.
Being Jeffrey Dahmer.
Right. If you're trying to level up into a serial killer, I guess it is valid experience.
Yeah. Well, listen, now, if we're talking about, it depends in context. If you're trying to survive in the wilderness and you're forced to do these things, kill a coyote or a wild dog, then so be it. You know, you level up your skills. If you're Tom Hanks and Castaway, perfectly reasonable to kill whatever you have to kill to survive and level up.
That was my biggest complaint with Castaway is I thought he should be murdering more coyotes. I thought that would have been pretty compelling. Take out the like the tooth scene, you know, the dentist scene or whatever the fuck, the ice skate scene. Put in some fucking coyote battles, you know.
Yeah, and then Wilson could have been a coyote skull he talked to.
Now that would be great. Yeah. What would Wilson be called if he was a coyote skull? Because he couldn't be called Wilson because it was, you know, a brand name.
Oh, well, I guess if it's that on the nose, then it'd be like, you know, Wiley or something, right?
Yes, Wiley. I mean, that'd be great. I think that would have worked really well. Yeah. Sometimes I'll let Kevin take over when I have to run off screen. And so, Kevin, take it away for about 5 to 10 seconds.
Oh, boy.
What are you doing?
I sometimes I wonder what he is doing. Do you have any bets on why Spencer had to suddenly get up again?
Did he just grab those headphones?
I think he was wearing those.
No, I had the headphones. Now, see, it's interesting you bring this up because last episode, Kevin started wearing headphones. There was like a cool gamer headset, and then he took them off. And then I was like, wait, weren't you wearing headphones? And he started gaslighting me. Like, no, I wasn't wearing headphones. What the fuck are you talking about? And I was like, pretty sure you were. And yeah, he successfully gaslit me into submission.
side by side highlights magazine or whatever, like pictures, like with different things. Or I was terrible in real life just now. So wait, hold on. What's the name of the server?
That's what I brought up last episode too. I brought up the exact same highlights cover convention. Sorry, I cut you off though.
Yeah, I just want to know the server is so I can go on the Discord server.
Shroud Home Video.
Bad Discord.
Shroud, all one word?
Yeah, I'll send you a link right now.
Okay, because Rob sent me just a link to get onto it. And I was like, well, that doesn't tell me anything. So
and then from there, just click general. If you're actually
on Discord, Ryan, is Discord something you use?
No, it's not. But I thought, aren't people commenting live right now on what we're talking about?
Well, the thing about my show and the thing about the Discord is that when I'm doing the show, they actually aren't talking about the show. If you were watching the Discord during Callie's show, you would see people commenting on the show, telling us what they liked and didn't like about the show, pitching Kevin questions to ask Callie. But when I'm doing my show, the people in the Discord are generally just talking about their days. So
feel good.
It's very interesting.
No, they're hard. I mean, there's a comment about coyote kicking, and then before that, a blue moon, and then slime modes. They are talking about us.
Yeah.
Wow. I think maybe Kevin cleaned house recently. Maybe he converted the bad Discord into the fine Discord, but not the good Discord. That's the one that pays me money.
Spencer, I have a question for you. And
Please.
It's about the show. So you talk about how we're all going to die. Like, what does that mean? I mean, I know what it means.
I don't do that so much with guests, but yes, I mean, I've for a long time, I've been saying this is very bad. The Nazis, there's a segment on our show, Ryan, that's called The Nazis Are At It Again. Well, I guess the segment is actually news time, but it just so happens that in news time, every single time, it just is the Nazis are at it again. We talk about some way that the Nazis are at it again. But it's very bad. We've had a lot of shootings. There's been less shootings reported in the news this past week than we've had. So maybe there's a lull, but I expect it to come back. But when there's not Nazi shootings, there's police beating the shit out of people, and police are Nazis. I also have a pretty liberal use of the term Nazis, just because I don't know. I'm more of a vibes guy. I'm not a big semantics guy, it's all fascism. It's all really bad stuff.
It's like the Supreme Court's definition of pornography. You know it when you see it. You can't quite explain it, but yeah.
And speaking of the Supreme Court, there's a bunch of Nazis on the Supreme Court. I don't know. If we didn't have a guest, I probably would have spent a lot of time ranting about abortion and how fucked we are. But I talked about it when the decision was, leaked. We kind of went over this stuff. And my whole angle is just like, they wouldn't do this if they had all thought it would have a consequence. And they had to understand that there would be a tremendous consequence. So they had to have at least some sort of, calculation that this isn't going to lead to expanding the court. This isn't going to lead into a giant blue wave that completely changes the political landscape. They think that they're going to get away with it. I don't know if they are. I'm not willing to go on the bat saying that they're going to get away with it, but I have to believe that they think they're going to get away with it. And if you look at the Supreme Court decision with what was it, Clarence Thomas, his kind of opinion on it, he's like, and Jesus Christ, you guys. He's like, and we should also take a look at the Supreme Court decision that allows contraceptive to be purchased legally, and the decision that allows gay marriage to be done legally, and the decision that amounts, and gay sex. And I guess I don't know if they actually said interracial marriage, but I think they did.
No, I don't. Well, but it's just Clarence Thomas ain't going to say that because he's in an interracial marriage, but I mean,
you wouldn't expect. Yeah, but
then again, who knows? But I think that I was hearing somebody else about this, and this is what they said. But the idea of it all comes down to the dog whistle saying it's states' rights, which is like, hey, it's states' rights. Let the fucking states say whatever they want, and then you do whatever they want, and then who knows what that opens the door and up to,
Yeah, well, my rule of thumb. I have a few rule of thumbs. The first rule of thumb is anything the Republicans want is bad. It doesn't work in essentially 100%. It works in 99.99% of circumstances. I'm sure there's very few corner case where it's like, oh, this wouldn't be so bad. But it's like anything they want is bad. Second assumption is it doesn't matter what they say. They know that talking is just filling time, is just creating ways for everyone to bloviate and equivocate and argue about what they're saying. It's all just nonsense. What matters is like their agenda, you know, and I think their agenda is pretty clear. I don't think it's like about states' rights. You know, the second that they even before, like, the Republican National Convention and stuff was saying that we're going to keep pushing, we want to enact a nationwide, you know, abortion ban, but to try and pass it through under the air of legitimacy, they were like, yeah, no, it's just about states' rights. It's like, no, it's not about states' rights. It's about, you want this, and part of your agenda involves lying about it to make it seem more palatable to people, you know. So like, I just don't trust anything they say that's not like a blatant admission there we go, admission of just like, we hate black people, we hate gay people, all this stuff, you know, we want all the trans people to be killed, etc. And you know, like, that's the thing, is they just ultimately, if you look at what people are saying, they're saying that they want to kill us. They want, you know, in the wake of this decision, a lot of people were yelling on Twitter because Jewish people on Twitter were saying that they have a religious right to an abortion. Like, their religion involves bodily anatomy and access to abortions. I don't know very much about Judaism. I'd take them at their word. But people saying stuff like that is the same people that support Israel, and, you know, that's a big platform of like conservatives is, you know, it doesn't matter what they're doing in Palestine. It's just we support Israel and stuff. These same people are like Hitler was right to these women who are like, you know, religion, you know, my religious belief includes access to abortion. They're like, you know, he should have gassed you guys, like, just disgusting, horrible things. And I think that's like, they just want to kill us. They just want, all these people are so hateful, and they just internalized being so dishonest about it, you know, that like, it just comes out like a lady was like, oh, this is a victory for white life.
Yeah, she said that in front of Trump. I saw that clip.
Yeah, and then they're saying it's a mistake. It's not a mistake. The same lady like invoked Hitler. Like, it's very clear. And just
what was the mistake?
She was supposed to, in quotes, say life, not white life. But that's very clearly.
Did you add an extra word?
No, that's not how people. That's not. I mean, I'm not going to litigate like who can misspeak and in what ways, but it's just very clear. And if it was misspeaking, it was misspeaking from a place of, this is what I want to say. And it's like, oh, I planned to not say what I wanted to say, but instead it actually just came out, my true beliefs. But, you know, people talk about religion, and people talk about the Christian angle. Again, none of their shit. It's almost a waste of time to even try and go into any of these details and justifications, because it's essentially playing their game. It's wasting their time. But like, people try to hide behind religion, but in the Bible, it talks about like, if you can invoke a medicinal miscarriage, it talks about what herbs you need to do to have that miscarriage. And it's something that it's in Numbers or Leviticus. It's something that the Bible prescribes. So it's like, the Bible is fine with miscarriages. Also, God was, for some reason, you know, I've talked about this before as well, but I think the Christian God is necessarily a sociopath, and that Christianity is inherently a religion in which you're in a toxic relationship with a sociopathic abuser God, which is just insane to think about. But what, you know, part of his sociopathy is God like has bragged about killing unborn children and ripping fetuses apart. I don't think fetuses is in the Bible, but like unborn children. You know, it talks about how life begins with the first breath. Like it talks about like life does not begin at a conception. The Bible actually says all these things, these pro-abortion things. It's not about that. And if you actually look in the historical record, the people who invented anti-abortion movements were explicit white supremacists who were, you know, there's what's called the Great Replacement narrative. It's sometimes co-opted or called white genocide. The idea that people of color seek to displace and outnumber the white race, and do that through killing and do that through intermarriage that creates mixed families that are less white than their predecessors and stuff. And that's always been a huge part, of white supremacy, dating back probably to slavery, because in slavery times, you'd have 5 rich people on a plantation with just 20 scores of black slaves, and they were just in constant fear of if these people actually wanted to kill us, they'd probably do it. So it comes back to this fear of black people because they're being subjugated and rightfully should stand up for themselves and kill us for denying their human rights. But so abortion, anti-abortion goes to that same idea. They were worried about white birth rates declining because wealthy people didn't necessarily have a lot of kids, and so they're like, white birth rates are declining. How can we stop this? Because otherwise, we're going to be overwhelmed by people of color. I don't think they use that language, but but what can we do? We have to stop abortions, which is kind of one of the sources of white birth rates declining. And so it's always been very explicitly about white supremacy. But, obviously you can't necessarily say that. Certainly you couldn't say that after a certain period of time. So it became, we're hiding it behind religion and stuff, and God doesn't want this. But it's not in the Bible. It's always just been about white supremacy and stuff, which is why it's Nazis. It's always Nazis.
Wow,
it's Nazis all the way down.
That's fascinating. I didn't know that. I mean, I'd be curious, is there data to reflect that? The white what more white people get abortions, or how does that, what do they think is going to happen now?
I don't know. I don't it's just at this point, there's just so much animus and hate, and they can just pick some issue and then galvanize and rally around it to a fever pitch. It's just, and so I don't think anyone knows what it's about. They just know that this is what their team's doing, and the people they hate on the other side don't want it. So they're, you saw my friend was a waitress in Missouri, and a bunch of people went to celebrate, a bunch of fucking rednecks went to celebrate at her restaurant, and were just taunting the wait staff and insulting them and laughing at their bodily rights being taken away, including her boss. And so it's that has nothing to do.
But her boss was doing the taunting, or her boss was
he was joining into it. Yeah, he wasn't taunting them, but he was these guys, they have a point, etc. He was on their side. But it's that's not, if you care about babies, you don't find women and laugh at them. It's not about that. It's about vengeance. It's about, spleen and venting anger and violence and hatred, and that's part of what fascism is. You reduce the other people to subhuman levels, you start to normalize violence, and that's why we're all going to die. It's just going to keep getting worse. There's going to be more shootings. I don't know. To me, it's all connected to, they just want to cause enough violence, enough chaos to then necessitate all these Kyle Rittenhouses, and then once that's happening, then it's hopefully they can whip up enough Nazis to start marching in the streets and really start fucking shit up. That's kind of my belief, and I don't know if they'll actually accomplish that, but that's what they want. And certainly if you go into their secret channels and stuff, they talk about stuff like that. They were talking about a left-wing night of rage on the day, which was just them saying, we want to go out and shoot people. So what's a justification for that? Oh, I'm sure the left is going to riot and we need to protect it. So they just kind of invented that there's this riot happening that's going to happen, and so we got to be there to start shooting at them. And then they were saying that this was invented by Antifa invented this because I don't know, it gets too complicated. The whole thing is all because it doesn't make any sense. It's all just about emotions and hatred, right? It doesn't have to hold together in any cohesive way. The more angry you are, the more you'll just buy down any excuse. I don't know if you've been in a situation like that where you've been really upset or emotional about something, and then you just kind of take something at face value that if you were in a more calm state of mind, you probably would have been wait, is that right?
Yeah, of course. If you actually, I do this with people that I don't particularly like, but I'll always say, if someone starts talking shit, I'll be I don't like this person, but they don't do this, they don't do that. You know what I mean? The point is you want to you don't want to just just because you see someone as a boogeyman doesn't mean you start ascribing all these horrible things to them. You still want to assess them as objectively as possible.
Yeah, I should practice that. I'm really good at just demonizing people I'm mad at. You know, I was raised conservative, and I'm sure that's where it comes from.
Oh, really? You were?
Kind of. My parents were vague, but they were really Christian, and they were more Christian than Christian. They were really, they were more conservative. They weren't like overt about it, particularly because my mom just like had this thing where she just never wanted to talk about like who she voted for or who people should vote for. On one level, it's like maybe they didn't want to influence us. On another level, it's like maybe they were ashamed of it. But like, there was relatively progressive people at the church we went to, but they were pretty strong. Like, I don't know, you know, my pastor was a chemical engineer, and every month he would have sessions that were like science sessions where he would ask, people would have like essentially like lore questions of the world building of Christianity, you know, like, oh, how did they actually part the Red Sea and stuff? And he would try and come up with like scientific explanations where he's like, well, you know, there's tectonic activity, so it's possible. Like, but like his faith was faith, you know, but on some level he tried to incorporate his science and not just like say like, oh, God said it, so it must be real. Like, who cares about physical laws? Like, he tried to thread the needle, you know. I don't know what he's doing now, but you know, I have a lot of respect for that.
Yeah, that influenced you?
Yeah, because it wasn't empty faith, you know. It wasn't like I will take my marching orders. It was like, this makes sense to me, or I can make sense of this using what I know about science, you know. And so for me, that was always kind of like what even when I was a little kid, I was like, I don't have faith. I don't believe. I've never felt like I heard God talking to me. To me, it makes sense that God created the world. And then at some point I was like, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. And it was never a crisis of faith. It was just like, oh, no, I thought, you know, it's like if you think, for instance, the moon is full on the 14th day of every month. And then we find out
every month. It is
right. I'm just saying, you know, like, and then you go, oh, okay, now I know this other thing, and I'm going to roll with that. It's not like, oh my God, what have I been believing? It's just like, oh, okay, this makes sense. You know, so it's like, that's how it was. And that was part of like what cemented it for me, is like, I'm clearly not conflicted about this. This isn't troubling to me. It's just like, oh, yeah, okay. It sucked because I still had to go to church for like years after that. I started like, the church had 2 services, and I started picking the service that my parents didn't go to. So I wouldn't have to go, but I would go because they would ask people if they saw me. So I would go, I would make an appearance, I would shake hands and eat the cookies in like the kind of lobby. And then when the church service started, I would go back to my car and drive away. And then I would just drive around for about an hour and a half, and then I would head home. And then my parents would be like, oh, how was church? And I'd be like, yep, it was Jesus-erific, you know, and it sucked because my parents were, you know, I don't know. My parents suck shit, you guys.
They do. Sure. It sounded cool to me earlier when you said they weren't trying to influence your political. You know, they weren't. It doesn't sound like they were inundating you with propaganda at a young age.
I try to be generous to them sometimes when I'm not very mad, but you know, I don't know why they did it. You know, but like anytime we would have like political arguments, they would just shut it down. So I think on some level, it might have just been like, they're not willing to have a discussion about this. So let's just not talk about it at all.
Let me ask you something. Where are you from?
I was born in Fresno. I grew up in a town called Elk Grove, which is a bustling California city, but at the time it was very small. And then I moved to Moore Park, which is about an hour outside of LA, and my dad got a job in LA at WB as a graphic designer. And yeah, so I've lived in Moore Park until I moved to LA, and then, you know, I moved to Burbank. So
that wasn't even what my real question is, although it does provide some interesting backstory. So sure. Where do you think, because I think about this a lot. So when people have kids and they're, let's say in your case, they're conservative and they have kids who are like become the opposite, you know, that has to come from somewhere. So do you have any idea if you have any relatives, distant relatives, uncles, cousins, grandfathers, whatever, who were like more akin to your way of thinking, that you kind of, that, you know, the genetic plinko kind of went through and then got to you, you know?
I don't know. I mean, I think my mom's brother I think my mom said that I was sometimes like her brother. But I don't think I ever really met him. He like,
do you know what he was? His deal was?
No, we should have him on and guess. But yeah, I do know his deal. He was a criminal. He was a criminal. My mom had stories of his crimes. One of his one of his tricks was he would take all of his clothes off and have a towel over his junk in a hotel, like outside of a room, and flag down a cleaning lady and be like, I locked myself out of my hotel. Can you please help me? And they'd let him in the hotel, and then he'd rob the hotel room. And that was like one of his tricks. Yeah. So pretty smart guy, as you can tell.
So there you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, so
and
I died. Did I step on that?
Yeah, he died of like alcoholism related disease, I believe. Like, I just know that he was like orange and swollen up from like some sort of kidney failure or something like that. I don't know. Liver failure, maybe.
But he, when your mom said you were like him, what was she referring to? I mean, you're not a criminal, you're not an alcoholic as far as I know, right?
That's probably what she was referring to, my criminal past and my alcoholism. No, I think it was just the fact that we were kind of both maybe black sheep kind of people. I don't know if he was a middle child, but I'm a middle child. Also, just like both of my parents are codependents. They were kids of alcoholism and stuff. And my mom had a really tough childhood. She was abused. And my dad, he didn't have a tough childhood, but I think he was just kind of distant or whatever. I don't know exactly why. But they were codependents, and part of like codependency is like you kind of run to fires when people are freaking out. Like your urge is to like appease them and to calm them down or something. And so my older brother was a shithead, and my little brother was a fucking brat. And so I think like because I wasn't a problem, growing up, they're like, Spencer's fine, and they would just like deal with my other brothers all the time. And I, from a young age, internalized like I shouldn't act like this. They are acting up, and I don't want to act up. So as a result, I was just kind of quiet. I didn't make demands. I didn't cry very much. I didn't ask anything of my parents, and I kind of was left alone. And I just so I've always felt really disconnected from my family growing up. And that only got more and more, pronounced as I got older. Trauma wise. I'm sure this is part of what you asked, but trauma wise, I think my parents failed me many times where they would say stuff like, you could always talk to us, or, if you ever need something, you can ask us for help. Oh, if you're ever at a party and you get drunk and you can't drive home, you could always call us and have us pick you up, stuff like that. And then every time I would then come to them with an issue like that, they would be like, figure it out. And so it's like, oh, okay. So my parents lie to me, and then they do nothing to help me, and then anytime I have any problems, they get really mad at me because I'm supposed to be the good one, the one that doesn't fuck up. But at the same time, they don't punish my brothers very much for fucking up because they're always fucking up so bad. So if they didn't if they were as strict as they should have been, so as a result, I got punished more severely. I ended up getting punished less just because I didn't act up, right? But where my brothers would I don't know, get in a car accident or something. This didn't happen, but I don't know. But they'd get in a car accident and get grounded for a month. That would turn into 2 days. But I would, mouth off to them, and I'd get grounded for a week, and it would never turn into 2 days. It would always be a week, stuff like that. So it's they would get worse punishments, but mine would be a lot more exacerbated for the offenses, if that made sense. Anyway, hate my parents. Don't talk to them. I don't talk to them, but also you guys don't talk to them. No one talked to my parents.
Wait, when was the last time you did talk to your parents?
Last time I talked to my dad was before Trump got elected, and my dad was saying that Trump was good, and I was like, you're a piece of shit. I didn't say you're a piece of shit, but I was arguing with him, and he was doubling down, and I was like, I'm not going to be talked to this way. If you want to talk to me, you will apologize, and if not, I'm not talking to you anymore. And he never apologized. I think parents are bad at apologizing. Anyway, so he never apologized. So he's tried to reach out to me and stuff, and is like, hey, I'm in town if you want to talk. But I'm like, well, you haven't apologized, so I'm not going to respond or pick up the phone. And a similar thing happened with my mom 3 years later. And so, yeah, I don't know. When I lived with my parents, it sucked. And they always wanted me to move out, which is fine. It's not wrong of them to want me to move out. But I was like, I don't think you understand. I don't like you guys. When I move out, that's going to be it. Like, I'm not going to talk to you. You're not going to have a relationship with me anymore. I'm not saying that as a threat. I'm saying that as a person who understands myself and understands you. And it's not like you're going to do enough to maintain relationships. And I'm going to be doing other things. It's not going to be my priority. And so as a result, we're going to drift apart. And I said this to them one time. And I was actually crying because the thought of it really made me sad to be like, wow, I'm not going to talk to my parents anymore, you know? And it was like a bummer to think about. But that happened. And, you know, that was before we actually formally stopped talking. But, you know, so we kind of drifted really apart. And then, you know, by this time, you know, and it's just like, I don't, you know, it's not to be ungrateful. I'm sure they did a lot for me, but like, I never felt like they were a value add in my life. Anytime we were talking, it always sucked. They would always get mad. I always felt being punished just for talking about them. You know, I would always hide in my room and leave the house constantly because I didn't like interacting with them at all. My brothers weren't quite as bad as me in this sense. Like, they talk to my parents more, and they still do talk to my parents. Like, they have a much more active relationship than I ever did, even before this all went down. But so, like, it was always just like, what am I getting out of this? Like, what's the possible benefit? Maybe someday they'll die and I'll get in the will or something. Like, I'm not getting a social relationship out of this. I'm not getting emotional support. Like, nothing positive is coming from it. It's just draining. I'm being drained by these energy vampires. So, you know, like, it to me wasn't a huge decision. It was just kind of like, you know, a formal bookend on like a very long period of nothing good, if that makes sense. And, you know, yeah. I'd like to have a good relationship with my family, in the sense that I'd like my family to not suck shit. But, you know.
What about your brothers? You used to talk to them?
No, I don't talk to my older brother. I talk to my little brother a little bit, but it's just kind of being busy and stuff. Like, I texted him happy birthday and stuff. And, you know, so I text my little brother. My little brother used to be a piece of shit until one day he got beat up. There was a fight behind the Vaughns across the street from the high school with my little brother and this weird punk kid. And he got knocked out, like, not like knocked out, but like, you know, in boxing, you like drop to you get your lights knocked out and then you're on the ground and you wake up like half a second later. Mm-hmm. It was like that. Like, he popped back up really fast, but like, he definitely lost that fight. And I was there watching him. And ever since then, he just became really cool, which has formed a belief in me that, like, a lot of people, what they need is to learn that the world is pain. And if you're a little shithead your whole life, eventually someone will hurt you, you know? And I think a lot of people, they just don't feel pain. And so they're like, there's no consequences to my actions. Nothing bad could ever happen. But, you know, a little taste of being like, oh, wow, if I am being a shithead to this person, he might punch me. I think it kind of changes their math a little bit. But anyway, this is me saying corporal punishment is good. Parents should hit their kids. No, but my older brother, I don't talk to him for reasons that I haven't discussed on this podcast. Maybe someday I will, but are
viewers of this podcast familiar with all of this? They all know you don't talk to your parents and your brother. You have a few relationships.
I don't know. I think so. The thing is, I say stuff on the podcast and then I just assume that everyone who listens to the podcast remembers it. You know, it's like if you write a TV show, you know all the details of it, but then if someone watched it and you were like, hey, what about that part? They're like, what? Because it's just like you don't have the same relationship to it than they do, you know? So like a lot of times I think that people know stuff, but then when I actually, you know, talk about it, people are like, oh, that's interesting. And I'm like, I fucking said this like 5 times on the show. You know, so I don't actually know. Kevin, but I have talked about it.
Confessional? Is this normal? Is this normal for an episode?
Yeah, I mean, again, I feel bad. I feel bad because normally I focus on the guests a lot more. You know, I would normally be grilling you a lot harder. You know, not grilling, but like I'd be focused a lot more on you. But for whatever reason,
I want to know what that even feels like. It's not like I necessarily need that, but I'd be curious what that kind of grilling would be like.
Yeah, so you're a writer, obviously. When did you start thinking about writing? Was it in high school, college? Like, did you go to film school?
No. I had a teacher in high school. First of all, I went to Sam Raimi's high school, and in science class, one day I was fucking around doodling, and the teacher called me out. It was going to be trouble, and I was. But then she said, I had that Sam Raimi in my class, and he used to do the same thing. So, you know, doodle or whatever. So maybe you'll be okay. And I think that was like whatever the opposite of traumatizing is. It's like kind of like suddenly it was like, oh shit, I could do this. And then I also had a teacher that in English, like creative writing or whatever, who gave me was really complimentary and supportive of my writing. And so I think that probably helped.
Yeah. And then you moved into like doing stand up, right? In Chicago?
Yeah. Well, in Michigan, my dad owns a comedy club, as I talked about in the last show, the Cali Kazoo Hour. What is it called?
The Cali Kazoo Show.
Yeah. So I did in Michigan, owns a comedy club. So that's, definitely the nature nurture is the nurture category. And then I wanted to move, and then I went to Chicago, which, if I know people ask for advice, they didn't ask for advice, but in the last show they said, what advice would you give to a young Ryan? So in general, what I found, like, I was not impressed with the stand-up scene in Detroit. And so I moved to Chicago because I'd gone there and I was like, holy shit, these stand-ups are amazing. And I always find that, like, that's the benefit of moving to a bigger city, because you're going to throw yourself in an ecosystem that's just more competitive in a good way that just makes you stronger. It's the way that fucking evolution works, man.
Yeah, no, you want to be in a larger pond. You can't, if you're the big fish, you're never going to get bigger, because why would you? But if all of a sudden you're a small fish, then it's like, oh, if I'm going to survive, I really have to strive. And also, like, maybe, I don't know if this is a lesser or a greater extent, like just seeing people that are more on their game, I think inspires you to greater heights too, right?
Absolutely. And then I got interested in filmmaking context. And so I heard about Channel 101 and then moved to LA, and that was the same thing over again. Holy shit, these people are fucking great. And, made you stronger.
Yeah, and then you did stuff with Justin Roiland, and that eventually led to what were you doing before Rick and Morty?
I was working on a show. Well, we had Acceptable TV, the VH1 show. You know about that, right?
Yeah.
And then that failed, and I was fucking miserable and lost, wandering in the literal wilderness in Israel for a little bit, for 5 months, and then I came back, and I had written a pilot, or started writing a pilot. And then that got me a job on a show called The In-Betweeners on MTV. And that proved that I could work in the industry outside of my friends, because I just got hired on that show based on the script.
Right. So when you say Acceptable TV failed, like, that's not typical language for if a show, like, so what do you mean failed? Like, did it really feel like failure, or what happened? I'm not super up on this.
I mean, it was on VH1 on Friday nights. And I thought when we were making it before it aired, I was like, oh, we're going to be the next Chappelle show. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, by the way, there was Human Giant and Whitest Kids You Know, and we weren't even the next those. I mean, it was just like, of those three, we were the least culturally relevant, and, ratings wise, it obviously MTV, they knew what they were doing better with comedy than VH1, even though they're the same parent company, and IFC kind of knew they had sort of something unique because they were new. And it was just, it's interesting. It was like a perfect, like, experiment. Like, what happens when you have three sketch shows on around the same time? And also, those shows were more like bands, where, like, those groups were kind of all equals and kind of had formed as bands, like, like the Kids in the Hall or Monty Python. And then Acceptable TV was like, Dan was like, hey, I'll take the best, in his mind, the best creators of Channel 101 shows, and we'll do a sketch show. But then it wasn't really a band. It was more like a super group where Dan was the boss of everybody's, the manager and producer. So just kind of on a chemistry level, it didn't really make as much sense, it sort of changed what Channel 101 was. And so even though I think there was some good stuff in there, I think it wasn't as successful creatively as those shows were. And then also it was on fucking VH1 on Friday night after Flavor of Love or whatever, I Love New York. And that's not going to be exactly the best, it's not setting you up for success with an audience. And so from a ratings point of view, it was a failure. I think creatively it was a failure-ish. And so, yeah, I think that they offered to renew it, but with a much lower budget. And Dan was like, what's the point?
For sure, yeah. So that actually sounds a little bit more like a Dana Carvey show situation. Did you watch that doc, the Dana Carvey show, where it's kind of like, oh, we had so much talent, but the way it came together and like maybe the management and friction with the company and the time slot and stuff just were like this comedy of errors that made it all kind of fail. Like, obviously it doesn't sound exactly like that, but it does sound a little bit like that. Interesting to know that they did get renewed, but it was like, nah, who cares?
I think that's the story. I don't remember hearing it. I remember hearing that years later. I'd have to at some point ask Dan if I ever talked to him again. But I that's what I always heard.
It certainly tracks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what it feels like to be interviewed by me. And now back to me trauma dumping on Ryan Ridley. No. Okay. So in terms of stand-up, when you were getting started, were there like people that you looked up to? I'm sure like being in the scene, there was people that you saw and then you're like, oh, I should do that. But like, were there people in Michigan? Were there people in Chicago? Or were there just people doing TV, nationally, like Comedy Central Presents sort of stuff that was really like it spoke to you, or like, I want to be like that, or, anything that you feel like shaped your kind of comedic voice a bit more specifically?
Yeah, I mean, I was talking about how I saw Jim Carrey on my 16th birthday at my dad's club. That was a huge influence because he was so fucking weird. I saw so many people at my dad's club that were like good, but they were just like the same old shit. And then Jim Carrey would do bits about, impressions of Jimmy Stewart during the nuclear apocalypse. And, it'd just be like fucking weird, absurd things that appeal to my sensibility. And then when I moved to Chicago, it was people that were just doing all this fucking weird, like just more obviously so-called alt comedy kind of stuff. And I had seen so much polished mainstream stand-up at that point that I was so impressed with like really fucking smart, charismatic people doing weird stuff. And of course, half of those people couldn't get their shit together enough to succeed, but they were super talented in the context of like doing weird shows in bars and in the Second City, small theaters and all that. And then the other half figured out how to do it. But everybody was inspiring to me. I mean, that scene that I was a part of in Chicago is fucking great. Half those people went on to huge success and half were geniuses that couldn't figure it out. And so equally inspiring, no matter who who it was.
Yeah, for sure. I kind of, when I was younger, I don't know. I never thought that I could be a stand-up, but I always thought it would be funny. Like it would be cool. It's like, man, I really had a lot of respect for comedians, and I just watched stuff on Comedy Central. And so like for me, like Stephen Wright and Doug Benson and Mitch Hedberg and what's her name? Fuck. I can't remember her name. No. She has no. The thing is, the way that I would say like, oh, she's the one who is like insulting, but she did a TV show and she had two pugs on it. No, small kind of red-haired woman, impressionist. Fuck, what's her name? The Discord is probably screaming at me.
Small red-haired woman, impressionist comedian.
Yeah, she wasn't like she did voices. Yeah, there you go. It was Carrot Top. Yeah, with the suitcase. Oh my god, she's so hot, Carrot Top.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
She did
fuck. It's. Kevin, she had a Netflix. It wasn't Netflix. I don't know what it was.
Maria Bamford.
Maria Bamford. Yeah. Okay.
That's who it is.
Yes.
Not redhead, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, she's not redheaded.
She is redheaded. I mean, she's not a redhead, but her blonde hair is often, she's blonde these days, but she had kind of orangey hair on her specials. I believe. I don't know. Who knows? Yeah, that looks red to me.
Oh, I see. She's got red highlights or red,
Well, that's the specific red highlight. Okay, whatever. I'm bad. Look at that one there. And I guess I was going to say if you tune in, you can look at the Google image search. But I'm sorry, you guys. I'm sorry that she wasn't redheaded. But she was the fucking best.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah.
She played at my dad's club not too long ago. I mean, I think 10 years ago. And look, my dad's club is great, but the audience is, Midwest or Detroit, whatever. I mean, it's not like it's, like an LA audience or like a fucking Austin audience. And she like was the headliner. And I don't think she was doing well. And so she got switched as be the middle halfway through her week. And I think she, obviously had a problem with that. So she had, like, my dad tells me every now and then, she did some speech somewhere where she referenced that. It was a bummer.
Yeah. Well, she's had issues. That's what I was going to say. She's the lady that has had a lot of publicized mental issues, but that didn't seem.
Well, I think she uses that in her art, right? Doesn't she kind of like make that part of her act, or wasn't that what her show is about?
For sure. Right. But if I'm trying to like call out like a woman comedian that I really respect, that seems like a really diminishing way to do it, but I stepped in it anyway,
Well, I didn't think of it as, I thought, like I said, she makes that kind of a part of her, she owns it in a way that's, positive, in the same way that, the comedian Gary Gulman, who kind of talks about his mental health issues and his stand-up. It's, you can either pretend it doesn't exist, or you can fucking go full into it, make it part of make comedy out of it.
Yeah. Do you remember your first open mic or anything? That's the thing for me.
What kind of question is that? Do I remember my first open mic?
What was it like?
It was awesome. My first open mic was fucking incredible. I think that this probably happens a lot to comedians or people who do comedy. Mm-hmm. You either have an experience where you're the first time you do it, somehow you go into some state of consciousness where you're not thinking, you're just fucking doing, you're in some zone that you can, it's the cruel ironies. You get into a zone. Sometimes literally doing something for the first time, you can get into a zone that usually takes you years to figure out how to get into, but so the first time I did it was fucking awesome. And then I did it again a week later, the same open mic, and it was fucking horrible. And then that was so traumatizing that I didn't do it again for years.
Yeah, that's to me what would be scary is like, I don't want to go the first time. Like after the first time, even if you really bomb, I think it's like you kind of have more tempered expectations or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I don't think I could handle like the first bomb. And I don't know. I feel like I've heard that. Go ahead. What was that? You say something.
Bombing is very painful.
Yeah, no, it's hard. I have not, I've had jokes that bombed on Harmontown and stuff, but like the hardest I've ever, bombed, so to speak, was, at the upfronts, when we first got Harmon Quest by CISO, everyone was really gung-ho about the idea of doing a live Harmon Quest episode, which I was always like, you're fucking paying us to do 10 Harmon Quests, and now you just want us to do a free Harmon Quest? Like a free 11th Harmon Quest? What the fuck? But without the time, without the prep, without the control over, editing and stuff. Like the show is a show that works in editing. But it was CISO, so they have a deep bench. But there's these two guys that had some CISO show. I'm sure they were like New York comedians. I don't know. I'd never heard of them before, or since, honestly. And I tried to like talk the guys out of it, being like, this is gonna be bad, it's gonna look bad, it's gonna make the show look bad. It's a bad idea all around. But they were like, you gotta do it. And so we tried to do it, and I told the two comedian guys who are the guests, like, okay, this is what you're going to do. You're going to be searching for the Crypt of the Rat King or something. And then I was trying to explain the thing about D&D is it's not just straight improv, right? It's not like, I have a gun or whatever, or you talk things into reality. It has rules to it, so like I was trying to explain it to them, and I'm going to be honest, they didn't seem to get it. And so that made me more nervous. And so then we did the show, and then they just started going off book and making shit up. And I'm like, I don't know what's happening. They also were very unfunny while they were doing it. So they were bombing, but they were going out on a limb and then bombing. And then, Dan and the gang, they were trying to like work around it, trying to make anything happen. I was trying, and it was just a nightmare, and it sucked. And, no one was laughing at a single fucking thing. And I was like, this is awful. And not only is it awful, it's the exact awful I expected it to be and warned people about, and it was upfront. So yeah, it sucked. And then after the show, I met Tom Sharpling.
Dan couldn't get a laugh?
I'm sure Dan got a couple. I'm sure there was a couple laughs. I'm probably over remembering it being negative, but it's like I've never done any show that was that bad before, because I don't, podcast stuff is kind of like a built-in audience. It's almost always like a home crowd. So
Yeah, that's the key to be a successful stand-up, is that you are constantly, you can do your little fucking, which is, by the way, this is the level I got good at, but you can do your circuit in Chicago and all the rooms that have a demographic that's going to get you to some extent, and it's a lot of times the same people over and over again. But once you go out into the fucking world and you're playing Pennsylvania and rural fucking Illinois and shit, you've got to be able to play to those audiences and not bomb or handle bombing.
Yeah, we had the Sklar brothers on, who, I don't know, you hear about the Sklar brothers and it's like, I don't know. I feel like there was a saturation of Sklar brothers for a while, and people are like, the Sklar brothers and stuff. They came on this show and they did a bunch of jokes really quick off the back, like this, off the second that we had them on. And then you could see them like adjusting, because they've played all around the world. And then after they adjusted, they started getting laughs all the time. And I was like, holy shit. And I had like a serious newfound respect to them, because it's like, that's difficult, like what they managed to do. And then like how they changed gears and honed in was also really specific and quick. Like they switched gears really fast and made it work really fast, Mm-hmm. I don't know. But why'd you stop doing stand-up? Just because like I don't know, like movie stuff and writing felt better, or what?
Well, yeah, not quite movie stuff, but if you mean movie stuff in the sense of making home videos with my friends, yeah. But you always got to follow your passion. And when you're not passionate about something, don't fucking do it. Like I just lost the passion for stand-up because like I said, I wasn't interested in trying to become one of these road comics, or wasn't interested in getting to some level of doing HBO specials. And I wanted to just write movies and TV shows and stuff like that. And so the problem is, when you don't care about, when bombing sucks, but then also you don't really care about killing as much, then you're like, what's the point? You know what I mean? Because you're always got to chase the high, and if the high isn't satisfying either, then move on to something else,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Oh my god, you ever play Sonic the Hedgehog?
Play it. I live it.
You live Sonic the Hedgehog? Do you want to expand on that?
Now I'm buddies with Ben Schwartz, who's the voice of Sonic. That's what I mean. I'm Ninja.
Okay. Oh my god, I think we're out of the show. Oh my god, Ryan. Have you ever drowned before?
Oh shit.
Because you're about to.
Drowning music? Is that what that was?
Yeah. Yes. And we're out of time, folks. Thank you so much, Ryan. Do you have anything to plug? Anything you're working on?
I've got plenty. I'm working on Renfield. Go see it when it comes out. Hopefully it's good. We'll see. Knock on wood. That we then carve into a steak and stab Dracula, Nicolas Cage.
And I heard tell that the character of Renfield was actually based off of your true life. Is that correct?
Yeah, with Dan, absolutely. Yeah.
Anything else? So you're not doing Invincible anymore, are you?
No, I just did that one season years ago, the first season.
Yeah, years ago.
Yeah, but Robert Kirkman, who's obviously the creator of Invincible, is the producer of Renfield. So. Oh,
awesome! That's so cool.
Yeah. Is this still being broadcast? Ultimately, or is this the cutting room floor?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, this is the show still. We're it's, you haven't quite drowned yet, I guess. Okay. Ryan's doing exciting stuff, but also obviously it pales in comparison to the heavy hitters and the big meetings I've been taking. I stream on Twitch. I stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/thesixler. I have a Patreon. Give me money, please give me money. I beg of you to give me money. But that's what's going on for me. And Schraub's been texting me. What's Schraub saying? It says Scud. Oh, ask Ryan if he liked the Planetina. No, I'm not going to ask that. He says they didn't hire me, and then he says Scud. So there you go. That's Rob Schraub. What about you, Kevin?
What is he referring to?
I have no idea. Oh, probably Acceptable TV.
No, he was a producer of Acceptable TV. He was involved.
Then I don't know what.
They didn't hire me. Huh.
We'll have to get to the bottom of this.
Yeah.
What Kevin has stuff to plug.
Yeah, so if you're watching this live on Schraub Home Video, coming up next is the Best Channel 101, followed by Real Life Sci-Fi with Wade, Willie, and Aaron. and then a brand new Found Crap from Rob Schraub tonight. And if you're not watching it live on Schraub Home Video, check us out every Sunday at SchraubHomeVideo.com.
Oh yeah, how many viewers are watching right now?
Get it.
It takes me a second to look up. 41,000 right now.
Wow.
I'm
gonna go on that Discord.
Tell them that I'm actually a good person and that they're actually bad. But as always, we like to end the show the same way every episode. So until next time, I'm just so sorry, you guys. It's just, I don't know what can be done.
Starburns Audio.